2025 is now officially over, so it's time to give my top 10 worst movies of the year. And apparently, I like to torture myself because I watched a lot of garbage out there. So much so that I was not able to include all of it in my top 10. So if you do want to check out my entire ranking of every single movie I watched in 2025, you can head over to my Letterboxd, which is in the description, and check out my list of every single movie I watched in 2025 ranked if you wanted to see my full list and just how much garbage I actually watched. But with that, even though I watched all this garbage, I still did not watch every single movie that come out in 2025. You may have a movie that is way worse than anything I have mentioned that is not on my list, so feel free to comment your ranking down below in the comments. And yet again, this is my opinion. You can always share yours. With that said, let's begin my top 10 worst movies of 2025. Now, it's weird that the Russo brothers are really good with Marvel and make some of my favorite movies of all time through Marvel, but somehow, outside of Marvel, specifically with Netflix, they have had a really rough run. And The Electric State is just one of those examples, which came out earlier in the year, and for the most part, the first 40 minutes I was digging this apocalyptic world with robots taking over, but then right after that, I feel like the movie just became too generic and just tried to reuse too many plot points that we have seen so many times that it started off really interesting, but by the time we got to the end, it just felt like we've seen this movie done a million times better. The actors and actresses do an amazing job across the board. We have some big names in this movie, and I feel like their performances do make me enjoy this movie a bit here and there. And the VFX on the robots look absolutely fantastic, especially for a Netflix movie. But like I mentioned, the plot incredibly just deepens the halfway point of the movie. It's where they were throwing out ideas that didn't really fit what the movie was truly setting up, and by the time we do get to the final battle, the movie just became too slow for what it was trying to do. The movie's trying to outsmart you in certain ways when in reality, it's not that type of movie. And because those last 40 minutes are incredibly weak, it overshadows all the good moments, and by the time you get to the end of the movie, you kind of question why you watched it to begin with.
Love hurts.
Now, if you told me at the beginning of the year that we are getting a Ke Huy Quan action film, I would have loved that because I love Ke Huy Quan as an actor and I love his rise of glory that he has been having this decade. And just an action film featuring that actor, that alone sells me. This movie should be good. It should just be dumb fun, right? Incorrect whatsoever. I do think this movie starts off that way with a few fun action scenes here and there, but after the first 20 minutes, all the action just dies out and we don't get another action scene until the last 10 minutes of the movie, where then we take a pause to focus on these characters and focus on this story that they're trying to tell, where we have a full hour of that with absolutely no action in an action movie. That is a wild choice to do, and since you don't really care about these characters, and you went into this movie for the action, for the dumb fun, this movie just comes off incredibly dull for that exact reason. It is so boring. The action scenes we do get are fun, but since the movie only is like about 7% of action, all of it just gets incredibly boring so incredibly fast. I could not care less about these characters, I could not care less about the story. The action is the only good part, and like I said, it's barely in the movie. Especially for an action movie, this one came off incredibly disappointing. Now, we all know these public domain horror movies are for some reason getting really popular because we have the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2, Bambi Reckoning even came out, I completely skipped that, but another part of that universe is Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, and somehow these movies are supposed to interconnect in the same universe and lead to a team-up movie. Is that even still happening? Because I feel like it's all completely forgotten about, and it should be, because Peter Pan Neverland Nightmares just continue this trend of awful movies that should not exist whatsoever. The only good thing I can say about this movie are the kills and the gore. They are incredibly graphic. They are incredibly disturbing. But for some reason, I would say that's the only reason to watch this movie is because it does have some great kills in here for that feature. And since can be incredibly disturbing here and there, I feel like on paper, it should have worked. But yet again, you have to remember, this is Peter Pan. This is not a original horror figure. This is Peter Pan, the fairy tale character. So making this movie as dark and disturbing as it is just doesn't work for the context of the movie. You're watching Peter Pan as a killer. Obviously, this movie needs to be taken not as serious as it actually is. But since it's being too serious and probably the most dark and disturbing one out of this entire Poonaverse franchise, it is incredibly serious for what it actually is. This is Peter Pan. This is not Pennywise or anything. This should not be as dark as it is. And sometimes it is too dark that it's just too painful to watch, which, if the story was actually good, I'll be fine with that because a lot of that darkness I do like in horror movies. This is not that. And let's not forget just the wild ideas they decide to do with Tinkerbell and stuff. It's just, why is that the story direction that you decide to go? This is just not playing into the fun factor of Peter Pan as a killer. And the sad thing is, it's not even the worst movie in this Poonaverse franchise. There is way worse out there. But it's still not good. This franchise needs to stop now.
Just trust me.
Now, a majority of these people don't find this movie bad. They just find it forgettable or just nothing at all. To me, this was a complete dumpster fire. I hated every second of this film. Now, to be fair though, it just wasn't truly made for me because I don't like the period that this thing is taking place on and find it really weird that that's kind of the story they decided to take things overall. It's essentially E.T. but like in the 1600s or whenever this thing took place. And I just found this movie incredibly boring because of it, just because all it is just a rehash of what movies like E.T. do, but trying to do something new with the period it is taking place on, but to me, none of it worked whatsoever. Most of the movie just feels like you've seen this story multiple times before, so everything that this movie tackles, nothing feels original enough to make it its own film. And also at the same time, it felt like the movie was reusing a lot of the same story beats every 20 minutes to try to change the story just slightly, but only just very minor, change that scene. Most of the movie just felt like the same thing over and over again until we got to the end. This movie did absolutely nothing for me, and I hated that I watched this movie. Most of the movie just felt like the same thing over and over again and never really did something new. I absolutely hated my time watching this movie. A lot of people do enjoy it. That's fine, but I don't really see anyone arguing that I hate this movie and some people enjoy it, because it's just really a nothing movie. It is so forgettable, and to me, nothing about it stood out. Now, besides for one movie on this list, this movie takes the cake for the worst script of the entire year. Now, I have not seen any other Fear Street movie, which I should because I hear that franchise is really great, but this was not really the great introduction to have before watching any of those other movies because this script was absolutely awful. There should be fun in here because it's a slasher, they're stuck in one location. You can have a lot of fun with a story like that. And there are plenty of slasher films out there that have that exact thing that makes it fun to begin with. But since everything in this movie is just so unbearable to watch, a lot of those ideas just completely crumble in execution. This entire movie is about the main character wanting to be voted prom queen for the year, which on its own, that is a weird motivation for a character to have, especially since that is what their entire character arc really revolves around, is them getting voted this, but oh well, that's the direction they decided to go. But the thing that really made me mad, the thing that really made me decide that this was an awful movie, is when everyone at the school found out the first person to die. A head is found in like this bowl at the prom, where everyone's freaking out, but for some reason, the teachers are acting like this kind of thing happens all the time. Now, it could be a Fear Street thing I don't know about, but that moment was playing out, and I just laughed really hard at it because not a single person ever would have that reaction. And then they continue the prom like nothing happened. Like, I'm pretty sure if you found a dead girl's head in a bowl, the entire dance would be cancelled. But no, the story still has to happen and people still need to know people were dying. So then the dance just continued. Like, what in the world? I can't say some of the kills are good. That's what slasher movies still do deliver on, even when the movie sucks. But overall, everything comes to the characters, the acting, and especially the script. This thing is awful. Every single moment of the movie, after they found the first kill, I feel like the script just got progressively worse. This was a really awful movie, and just the way it all plays out, especially the final act, is the worst part of this entire movie. This is by far one of the worst scripts of the entire year, but there's one movie that just has a worse script than this. This just shows that I watched a lot of bad stuff throughout this year, because I absolutely hated this movie when it came to everything, and this is not even in the top 3. Now, I'm sure most of you guys watching this video did not see any zombies movie, because it's a very niche thing on Disney Channel that was about, 2018 when the first one came out. The first movie is good, but then the franchise just dips after that because it felt like they were reusing the same story beats every single movie and were just making stuff for the sake of making stuff. And that is best shown in Zombies 4, whereas quite clearly this franchise is dead and has absolutely no story left to tell. So what did they do? Oh, they introduced this entire new generation that they want to continue on Zombies 5 with. But the first Zombies movie is about humans and zombies on the same world and have to try to live together in that society. While this fourth one is about, vampires and stuff. We're totally off from what the original movie plot was. And Zombies 5 is coming out, and I heard that the original cast won't even be in it anymore. Like, what are you doing? This is not what Zombies is, and you're completely going off track of what it was. And this movie just established that breaking point of you completely lost it all. They keep reusing the same themes, the same story beats. The songs absolutely suck, the acting sucks, which for a Disney Channel movie, it still sucks worse than that. And of course, the writing sucks. Everything about this movie, it just completely kills everything that the original film was. Even, I would argue, the first 2 films of zombies are good. 3 and 4 completely lost it. This one makes 3 look like a masterpiece, and I still hated 3. Because this one just absolutely loses everything. It's not really the same movie anymore, and it sucks that this is still in the same continuity of it. Just end this franchise. Don't continue it, because obviously without the original cast, you can't really make a Zombies 5 the same way and still make it a cash grab. But for some reason, they're making it. I feel like they're just completely ruining everything. But oh well, they're doing whatever they want. To me, this absolutely killed everything. Now, of course, the classic World of the Worlds that everyone has been talking about is the worst movie of the year. Now, earlier when I was talking about Prom Queen, I said that that was the worst script I've seen all year. If it wasn't for one other movie, this is that movie. This is by far the worst script I've possibly ever seen. It is followed by worst acting ever. But a lot of this movie, the reason why it's not number 1 on this list is mostly because it is so hilariously bad that it is fun to watch. In fact, I found this movie just to have a little bit edge to it, just because I was laughing at the movie most of the movie, that I just found it fun to watch for that factor. It's absurd. The final act of the movie is resolved from an Amazon drone dropping off a USB port. It is an Amazon commercial at the end and is so hilarious to watch. Now, I did watch a spoiler review of this before actually watching it, so I feel like a lot of my enjoyment from this movie would have been saved if I didn't watch that spoiler review. But this movie is awful in the best way possible. It is absolutely hilarious, but it's still a bad movie. And the fact that this is number 4 just shows exactly what I watched for these past year. I don't know what I'm doing. Last year I said that Megamind 2, by far the worst movie of the decade. This year there's like 6 movies on this entire list that beat out Megamind 2. But War of the Worlds, I laughed the whole time. It was fun to watch because it was just so bad. Acting sucks. You all know about this movie. I don't need to explain why it sucks. This was the worst movie of the year by far, but I enjoyed it. Well, I am disappointed that I watched this. Now, I did not go into this movie expecting that it was going to be good whatsoever. I am quite clear I am not the target demographic for this movie. This movie is made for 4-year-old girls who are in preschool. But the only reason why I watched this movie was because it was made from DreamWorks. DreamWorks is that studio with some of the best animated movies of all time. So I watch every single one of their movies no matter what. And well, They decided to release Gabby's Dollhouse out of the blue. All of a sudden, they were making these movies for preschoolers, which sucks because, they made How to Train Your Dragon, they made Shrek, they made Prince of Egypt, they made all these movies that are the animated movies that are really mature to Gabby's Dollhouse. What are you doing? And they're making a CoComelon's movie 2027, like DreamWorks. What are you doing? But I decided to torture myself because I have on my list to watch every single DreamWorks movie to come out, and I wanted to watch this before the year ended, so I watched it, and yeah, it's exactly what you expect. I am obviously not the target demographic for this movie. I feel like the entire time, my eyes and ears were bleeding out the entire time just because this movie is quite clearly made for preschoolers throughout it all. Characters are talking to the screen, telling kids to shout, say certain things. Which, yes, for a 4-year-old, yeah, this movie would probably be your favorite movie of all time. It does everything right that the target demographic would do. But as an adult male, this is absolutely not what I wanted to watch. This movie is only an hour and a half, and I feel like I sat there all day just draining my energy out. Good thing I watched a great movie after this, which will be my top 10 best movies of the year. But this movie just drained all my energy, and I hate to say that I watched this. The only reason why it's not number 1 on this list is because obviously I am not the target demographic. As I mentioned countless times, I am not the target demographic. But a message to DreamWorks, please go back to your roots. This decade you had The Wild Robot and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which are going to be the level of some of the best DreamWorks. Why are you making this? Don't make stuff like this. Go back to what works. Instead, you're now just running my brain for everything that I'm watching. Earlier this decade too, you had Spirit, that whatever horse movie that originally was the worst DreamWorks movie. Gabby's Dollhouse completely beats that out. This is by far the worst DreamWorks movie. I tortured myself. There you go. Most of my subscribers subscribe to me due to my DreamWorks ranking. If you guys are here, watch that video. Don't worry, do not watch this. This is the worst DreamWorks movie. There you go. I did that homework for you. Don't watch this film. But yet again, if you have a 4-year-old, this thing is probably their favorite movie of all time. Like I said, I'm not the target demographic.
The Twins.
Now, I grew up reading a lot of Ronald Dahl books, and one of those books was The Twins. Although it is a short little book, I feel like it did have a clear message in there that really worked, and I just enjoyed the short little story that it was. Well, I heard they were making a movie adaptation of it, and Netflix movies can be a lot of hit or miss. They're either good or not. This was definitely not. This was awful. Back in 2022, there was a movie on Netflix called Marmaduke, where it was essentially what this movie is. This movie is incredibly stupid. It's dumb. A lot of people could argue that this thing is made for kids. I would say no. I have no idea who this is made for. Because if you're watching this, you most likely read the book. You most likely grew up on the book if you're watching this movie. So obviously, this movie should appeal to those fans, right? That is not the case at all. This doesn't even appeal to preschoolers. Gabby's Dollhouse is a better movie than this. Where everything that happens in this movie is incredibly dumb. The script, I don't even know what they were thinking. Was there just a person writing this by himself and he's just laughing at every single joke? There is a scene in this movie where a guy completely blows up like a balloon because, he ate something and he farted all of that out and it caused a huge earthquake. Was this from the writer of Marmaduke? Because that exact scene happened in Marmaduke. Which is why I made that comparison earlier, because those two movies are exactly the same thing. They are not good. They're movies I don't even know who they're made for. Why do I watch stuff like this? Every character is so incredibly stupid. Everything that happens in this movie is so incredibly stupid. I feel like this movie had potential that was completely wasted because this movie has a theme that is worth telling that was also in the book. But they completely just made a huge bunch of brain rot. Nobody is talking about this movie. Rightfully so. It is awful. But it's only number 2. Number 1's way worse. And just like that, the worst movie of 2025 is Sneaks. Most of you people probably won't even know what this movie is. Good. Stay away from it. But I happened to come across a trailer that looks so bad. So stupidly bad that I had to watch it. Why? Because I like torturing myself for some reason. A lot of this stuff on this list is crap. Ever since I watched it back in, July, it's always stayed in last place. Never moved. Because it was never going to move. Everything about this movie is so incredibly just eye-meltingly bad. I had to pause this movie every 5 minutes to take a break and do something else for 10 minutes and then come back to the movie. I could never fully sit down and sit through this movie. Everything when it comes to its characters, the story, the acting, all of it sucks. The animation is so cheaply made. The story, I don't even know what is happening. It feels like it was combining Toy Story and Secret Life of Pets but with shoes. And just by the end, the writing was absolutely awful. Who sat in the room writing this, making this movie, thinking that this was going to be really good? This thing came out in theaters. Everything else on this list at least had a streaming release. A few exceptions here and there, but this thing came out in theaters. And this thing is awful. I was thinking of watching this in theaters at one point because the trailer just looks so bad. But then, right before going to the theater, I sat down and I was like, what am I doing? I canceled my ticket right away. I'm so glad because if I watched this in theaters, I don't know what I would have done. Because like I said, I took a break every 5 minutes. Theaters, that would probably be the worst torture of my entire life. Forget Saw. You can handle Saw's tortures compared to this movie. I don't hate movies as often as I hated this movie. This was absolutely awful. I talked about Megamind 2 earlier. That movie is a masterpiece compared to this thing. This thing is one of the worst movies ever made. Do not watch it, even if you're curious to see how bad it actually is. I did that exact same thing. This is awful. Stay away from it. Do not watch this. But anyways, that was my list for the top 10 worst movies of 2025. If you want to see my best list, you can find that video right over here, or another video right down here. But with that, thanks for watching, and see you guys next time. Goodbye.